Hi guys, welcome back. We are in chapter 20 of the Silva Mind Control Method. This is the last chapter in this book, so let's get to it. Where do we go from here? From the moment of your first accomplishment with mind control, you will be launched on an odyssey of self-discovery. What you learn about yourself will be all good news. Finally, when you have made everything work for you, as Jose has described in his chapters, several paths for future development will be open to you. You may, through books or friends or other courses, try out still more techniques and add to the mental tools at your disposal. On the other hand, you may find that even a miracle repeated over and over becomes commonplace, and with the excitement of your new discoveries fading, you may slack off and drift back to where you were at the onset. Or, finding that one mind control technique works better for you than others, you may specialize in that one and make it a reliable part of your life. None of these paths is the best for you. If you begin a search for other techniques, you will find many that work. Chances are the ones you find have already been researched by Jose and set aside in favor of those now in his course. Those who become technique collectors take time away from developing a few useful ones to the point of mastery. More on this later. If you find that your excitement dims and you drift away from practicing mind control, you will not be alone. More important, your experience will not be a total loss. Jose has observed that once acquired, mind control training is never completely lost and can be recalled and put to use in an emergency. What many mind control graduates do is settle for one particular technique that works best for them. The more they use it, the better the results. However, there's a fourth way better than any of these three. Mind control is a very careful selection of mental exercises and techniques that reinforce each other. To ignore one because it does not work as well as another is to pass up the opportunity of truly full development. Dream control reinforces your ability with the mental screen. The mental screen makes dream control more reliable and vivid. The course and Jose's chapters here are all at a piece. The whole is much greater than the parts. Still, you may wonder where you go next when you have practiced it all and made it work. Simply making mind control work is not enough. There are always degrees of control, subtleties of experience ahead of you. A student once asked Jose, at what point does a person know he has gotten out of mind control everything there is to get? When you can convert all your problems into projects and make your projects work out the way you want them to, he answered. Then he paused a moment and added, no, it goes deeper than that. When you realize what enormous powers we're all born with, when you see in your own experience that these powers can only be used constructively, you come to realize that there is a dignity and a purpose behind our presence on this planet. My own opinion is that this purpose we must serve is to evolve, and this evolution is now our own individual responsibility. I think most people have a kind of weak hunch about this. The more you practice mind control, the stronger this hunch becomes until it becomes a firm certainty. It is this depth of experience that awaits you, the firm certainty that there is a benign purpose behind everything. In mind control, this comes not as a mystical flash after years of life renouncing meditation, but quite soon out of a daily business of living more effectively from the everyday details of life as well as its destiny shaping events. Let's take a very small incident, the kind a new mind control graduate might experience, and we will see how it becomes a step toward building this firm certainty. The first thing a recent graduate did on returning home from vacation was to remove the film from his camera and then search his luggage for a roll of exposed film. He could not find it. The film was not a great loss, but an annoying one. It was a record of the first week of his vacation. He went to his level and relived the moment he had last put film in his camera, but all he saw on his mental screen was the camera itself on his coffee table, where he had put the first roll in, not the second. He stayed at his level and went from one picture taking moment to another, but still no scene of his reloading the camera. Stubbornly, The coffee table scene kept reappearing. Convinced that his mental screen had failed, he turned in the one roll of film for developing, and when it came back, it contained all the photographs he had taken from the beginning to the end of his vacation. There was never a second roll. As small as this incident was, it provided the graduate with the first concrete reason he had not encountered outside the classroom for having more confidence in his own mind. With a few more small incidents like this, then several major ones in which he helps not only himself, but someone else as well, his view of himself and the world around him will change. His life will be changed because he will be on the brink of that firm certainty. Along the way, he may achieve something like the following. A graduate who has been practicing mind control for several months had a daughter who was allergic to his family's two cats. Whenever she played with them, she wheezed uncontrollably and broke out in a rash. He put the problem, then imagined the solution on his mental screen during his meditations for about a week. The solution he imagined was his daughter playing with their cats, breathing easily with no rash. One day, he saw in real life what he had been imagining. His daughter was no longer allergic to the cats. Both these cases involved the mental screen alone. They were both successful, so you might ask, why bother with the other techniques? In the first case, if the graduate had learned nothing except how to use his mental screen, it is just possible that he would have achieved the same results, assuming that he had simply triggered the recall of a forgotten fact and that higher intelligence did not come into play, which is far from certain. However, the second case involved a broad range of mind control training, going to level, visualization exercise, effective sensory projection for the telepathic transmission of healing, dream control, and caseworking so that he could add a full measure of expectancy to his desire and belief. With extensive practice, your mind will begin to take shortcuts. It will become sensitive to faint signals on important matters and will pass them on to you without you having to search for them. One mind control graduate's life may have been saved this way. She was meditating one morning just before going to work, using her mental screen to correct a small office problem when a large black X blocked out the sense she was trying to create. Then it blocked out all the other scenes connected with her office. A hunch too strong to ignore told her to avoid the office that day, and she happily stayed home. Later, she learned that if she had gone to the office that day, she would have walked into an armed robbery in which several persons were badly injured. This is the kind of information we would normally get with dream control, but the mental screen was what she was using, and this is where it came through. There was another case in which the mind was so trained that in a serious emergency, it was brought under control by a graduate without taking time to go into alpha. Many of these events described in the following letter were attested to by 9 witnesses. Wednesday, I came home from shopping and my arms loaded with bags. I opened the screen door, which swung back on me before I could open the inside door. Impatiently, I gave the door a hard push, and to my horror, it slammed back fast, and the pointed door handle stuck in my arm below the elbow. I dropped the bags and slowly pulled the handle out of my arm. I could see deep down through layers and layers of tissue into a deep hole. Then blood started to well up, filling the hole, flowing over. I didn't have time to feel faint. Instead, I concentrated intensely on stopping the bleeding. A great surge of joy shot through me when the bleeding stopped. I could barely believe my eyes. While I was washing and cleansing the wound, the first pains came. I sat down and went to my level, trying to find out whether I should cancel a trip to Boston to hear Major Thompson at a mind control meeting and go to a doctor instead. But I felt a strong urge to go to Boston, also a strong urge to test my belief in having learned to control pain. I worked on my pain incessantly on the way to Boston, but during the lecture, it became so severe and my fingers so numb that even at my level, I could hardly stand. I felt guilty that I couldn't listen to the lecture. Yet next day, I was able to repeat it almost word for word. While in such severe pain, I kept calling for help psychically over and over. Martha must have heard my cry because after the lecture, as people wandered over to the coffee table, she insisted on seeing my cut. When I raised the bandage, my wound was still gaping open. A piece of flesh had been somewhat dislodged when I pulled out the handle, and the skin around it was purplish black. She went for help, and having found out where the nearest hospital was, came back with Dennis Storian. I said I did not want to go to the hospital. I wanted Dennis to work on it, so we withdrew to a quiet corner where Dennis went to his level. Once he started to work on the wound, my pain became so intense that I had to go to my level to work on it too. As he began knitting the bone tissue together bit by bit, his fingers seemed to draw the pain in huge waves. The wound became so sensitive I felt like screaming. I tried to concentrate on making the pain go away and on sending help to Dennis and to myself over and over and over again. Successfully combating the urge, undoubtedly conceived in beta, to tell him to stop and let me go to an accident room, I really wanted it to work. And after hours, it seemed I could feel the pain begin to subside. First, I felt about 10% less pain, then about 15%. When Dennis asked how I was, about a quarter of the pain had gone. As we continued, the inner tissues mended. Then, as the outer layers began to mend, the pain became even more intense. Despite my concentration on the healing, I was slightly conscious of people moving around me, especially of someone standing behind me, taking away some of the pain when I needed it most desperately. I felt so grateful. Then the next wave started, and I had to concentrate hard on coping with them. Then we worked on closing the deepest part of the wound. I felt people forming a circle around us to give us strength. I could feel the energy surging through me. It almost lifted me off of my chair. Dennis could feel it too, and with the help of the others, the healing progressed much faster. Some of those in the circle later told me that they could see the wound closing, the swelling going down, the skin turning from an unhealthy purple to reddish purple to red to pink, and finally two outer layers of skin coming together like the well-cut pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. When we got back to where my car was parked, my friends wanted to drive me to work. They didn't want the wound to open up when I used my arm on the stick shift of the car, but I refused. I knew I would get home safely, and so I did, with absolutely no pain. The next morning, I woke up in fine shape. My arm felt as if it had been in a fight. I had never been beaten up, but I imagined this must that would have felt like. But there was no pain, and my arm looked great. I sat up in bed and saw our beautiful world bathed in beautiful, brilliant sunshine. I felt as if I had been reborn. As you can see, if you continue to explore the potentials of your mind, it will pay off in priceless ways. In this respect, says Dr. J. Wilfred Hahn, Mind Control's Director of Research, every mind control graduate becomes his own Director of Research. In what other field of research, he asks, are expensive laboratories and sophisticated equipment so unnecessary? The most sophisticated research tool ever developed, one so remarkable that I am in awe whenever I think of it, is at our disposal and mine 24 hours a day, our minds. We are all, therefore, directors of research. One important advantage that we have now is that for the first time in history of modern science, psychic research is becoming respectable. The dangerous the danger of a serious investigator being put down as an irresponsible crackpot, as Jose was in his early days, is vastly reduced. This danger is not entirely behind us. There are physicians learning to use mind control in their practice, industrial scientists who use dream control to put them on the track of new products, men and women in all walks of life. Some mentioned anonymously in this book who say, don't use my name. My friends will think I'm crazy. This is becoming more and more rare. Hundreds of thousands of mind control graduates proudly speak of what they are accomplishing with their training. Respected medical journals carry scientific and clinical papers on psychic healing and mind control body interactions. Men and women in the public eye, members of the Chicago White Sox, and performing artists such as Carol Lawrence and Margarita Piazza, mentioned earlier, Larry Blyden, Celeste Holman, Laureata Swit, Alexis Smith, and Vicky Carr are all these spoken out publicly of their mind control experiences. Where do we go from here? Down a long path of exciting self-discovery. With each new finding, we will be closer to the goal of the ultimate research project spelled out for us by William Blake. To see a world in a grain of sand, and a heaven in a wildflower. Hold infinity in the palm of your hand, and eternity in an hour. That is the end of the Silver Mind Control Method. I hope you enjoyed listening along as I read this to you. And I can't wait for you to join me on the next journey. The next book we'll be exploring psycho cybernetics. Let's get it.